Welcome back to our channel, Time Travelers. Today we will advance another 2 centuries across the European continent. If you missed the last episode, I suggest you watch it before we start this chapter. Head over to our playlist, choose your preferred language, and then come back here so we can continue our journey. Here we are, facing a map that shows us many changes taking place since our last episode. The main change here has to do with the Roman Empire. There's no way to talk about this period without mentioning the Roman Empire, right? This is the big focus of today's episode. Wars, conquests, defeats, political strategies, betrayals, assassinations, and much more. Previously, we saw that Rome was already preparing to become a world superpower, and that is exactly what is happening now. All that red territory you can see comprises the Roman Empire. Until then, Rome was actually a republic, but today we will see how it ended up becoming an empire, and how it expanded in such an astonishing way across the entire Mediterranean and half of Europe. We will begin our journey by talking about Julius Caesar. He was born on July 13, 100 before Christ, in Rome. Caesar was a highly influential political leader in the Roman Republic, belonging to the party of the populars, progressives who opposed the conservatives known as Optimates. He had 3 wives, but he was also the lover of Cleopatra, something that ended up influencing Rome in many ways. Caesar was part of the First Triumvirate, a private agreement of convenience with 2 other powerful men in Rome, Marcus Licinius Crassus, who was the richest man in Rome, and Pompey the Great, a famous military conqueror idolized by the people. When Crassus dies in battle in 53 before Christ, Caesar and Pompey become rivals, which leads to a civil war that is won by Julius Caesar. During the civil war, Caesar pursues Pompey to Egypt and ends up meeting Cleopatra, the last queen of the Ptolemaic dynasty. She was ambitious and intelligent, knowledgeable in several languages, and knew how to achieve her goals with cunning. She becomes Caesar's lover, and they end up having a son known as Caesarion. Cleopatra was very pretentious. Under her influence, Caesar directly intervenes in the Egyptian civil war, in which Cleopatra becomes queen after disputing the throne with her brother. Over time, Caesar becomes a dictator, and is assassinated on March 15, 44 before Christ, known as the Ides of March. The assassination takes place during a meeting with senators. Led by Brutus and Cassius, they stab Caesar to death, an event that triggers further civil wars. Cleopatra had spent time in Rome with him, and even erected a golden statue of herself in the Temple of Venus, becoming a constant threat to the Roman Republic, both she and Caesarion, who could end up becoming Caesar's heir and also Cleopatra's in Egypt. Caesar's assassination is related to his dictatorship, but it can also be seen as a way to end the threat that Cleopatra represented to Rome. Caesar had become a traitor, and had to be eliminated. When he dies, the Second Triumvirate is created by law. It was formed by Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, who was only 19 years old, Lepidus, who was politically weaker but an ally of Caesar, and Mark Antony, a general loyal to Caesar, charismatic and powerful in the East. Soon, this alliance also begins to behave in an authoritarian manner. Tensions arise among the 3 rulers, in which Lepidus is quickly sidelined, leaving disputes between Mark Antony and Octavian. Cleopatra allies herself with Mark Antony and manages to seduce him as well. They become lovers and have 3 children. Octavian begins to build massive propaganda to show everyone that Cleopatra is the foreign queen corrupting Rome, and causing numerous problems for the Republic. Cleopatra's objective was clear: to become involved with powerful Roman leaders in order to gain power over the Republic. In the Battle of Actium in 31 before Christ, Octavian's fleet destroys that of Antony and Cleopatra, consolidating his power over Rome. He invades Egypt, defeats the last resistors in Alexandria, and sees Antony and Cleopatra commit suicide. Thus, Rome annexes Egypt. In 27 before Christ, Octavian receives the title of Augustus, meaning sacred, widely associated with the polytheistic beliefs of the period, something that strengthens his power over Rome, giving rise to the Roman Empire. This inaugurates the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace that lasted 2 centuries, fostering art, engineering, and laws that shape the world to this day. Augustus reorganizes the army, creates the Praetorian Guard, builds incredible roads, and promotes a cultural flourishing. Rome becomes a city of marble, with the Forum of Augustus, the Pantheon, and magnificent temples. The empire expands astonishingly after many epic battles. However, in 9 after Christ, Augustus's expansionist dreams are shattered by the Germanic peoples of the north. He wanted to expand the empire beyond the Rhine River, conquering the region of Germania. The Battle of the Teutoburg Forest against the Germans led by Arminius turns out to be a disaster. Until then, the Romans had not yet encountered a geographical territory like that, with dense forests of difficult access, nor warriors as skilled as the Germans. In some ancient accounts, the Romans described them as savages, tall and fierce. They possessed powerful weapons, including axes, as well as extensive knowledge of their lands. They knew how to operate in that type of environment, and how to use it to their advantage. With this, Roman expansion is prevented from advancing into the northern territories, something that has a great influence on various aspects, such as languages and culture. Augustus dies in 14 after Christ, and the Julio-Claudian dynasty begins. Tiberius, from 14 to 37 after Christ, maintains stability but becomes paranoid, with trials for treason and retirement to Capri. Then comes Caligula, who rules from 37 to 41 after Christ. He spends fortunes, declares himself a god, and is assassinated after 4 years of terror. The next emperor, Claudius, rules from 41 to 54 after Christ and surprises everyone. He conquers Britannia in 43 after Christ, expanding the empire to the British Isles, improves administration, and builds incredible aqueducts. But his personal life is dramatic, including bad marriages, poisonings, and other things. Then comes Nero from 54 to 68 after Christ. He is an artist, builder of the Domus Aurea, after the Great Fire of Rome in 64 after Christ, which he may or may not have caused, something that remains a mystery, but he also ends up being a tyrant who persecutes Christians and senators. His reign ends in general revolt, and he commits suicide in 68 after Christ, opening the year of the 4 emperors in 69 after Christ. Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian compete for power in a quick and bloody civil war. Vespasian wins, founds the Flavian dynasty, and brings stability back. The Flavians build the Colosseum, begun by Vespasian and inaugurated by Titus in 80 after Christ, with 100 days of games. This is where the policy of bread and circuses emerges. It was a strategy in ancient Rome to control the masses, offering food, that is, bread, and entertainment, including games, gladiator fights, and spectacles, in exchange for political passivity, avoiding revolts and criticism of the emperors, especially in times of crisis and population growth. In addition, the Flavians also conquered Judea after the Great Jewish Revolt, from 66 to 73 after Christ, and consolidate borders. At the time when Jesus was crucified, the Romans had already established themselves in this region, having crucified Jesus at the request of the people, who preferred to release Barabbas and crucify Jesus. The biblical book of Romans aimed to convert the Romans to Christianity in that period. Some Jews were paid at the time to spread the idea that Jesus had not risen after 3 days, as he had promised. They spread a version that his disciples had stolen his body while the guards were sleeping. This separated Christianity from Judaism. The mission of the Book of Romans was to spread Christianity to the greatest empire of the period, and indeed, many Romans began to follow Christianity. However, they were cruelly persecuted at the time. Many were tortured and killed, including in the Colosseum, as part of the bread and circuses policy. The highlight of today's episode is Trajan. He rules from 98 to 117 after Christ, conquering Dacia, which comprised present-day Romania, in brutal wars, bringing gold that finances grand constructions in Rome, such as the Forum of Trajan and Trajan's Column. The empire reaches almost its maximum size. After all, the total peak comes a little later, in 117 after Christ, with efficient administration, flourishing trade across the Mediterranean, and roads connecting everything. However, after Trajan, some crises will begin to occur, as we will see in the next episode. Thank you so much for traveling with us through these 200 years of intense transformation on the European continent. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to leave a like, share, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the bell to get notifications when the next chapters are released. See you in the next episode.